Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the Knife Center, and welcome to Knife AQ. This is episode 132 of the Knife series, where I answer all your questions, whether they're sharp or dull. This week, amongst our questions, we're taking a look at two fixed blade survival knives from Benchmade and Zero Tolerance. Which one will be better for you? Let's get into it. Again, welcome to the forum of the Knife AQ video. If you have a question that you would like featured in one of these episodes, just drop it in the comments section below this video, because that's what we do. We pull some selected comments that we think stimulate some interesting discussion, or interesting questions at least, and try to answer them to the best of my ability. First question today comes from Benjamin Hahn. Can you do a comparison of the Benchmade Anonymous versus the Zero Tolerance 0006? Yes, indeed. Sure. Kind of an interesting comparison to think about, or interestingly, this is not particularly a comparison that I would think about having handled both of the knives in person. Because while on paper they may seem like they have some similarities, their size is not too dissimilar, similar colors in fact. The prices on each aren't wildly different. Both of them American made as well. In hand, however, these two knives present very, very different personalities. So that's what we're here to talk about. Let's start with the 006. 006, thank you, Thomas. Not licensed to kill, probably.
Probably
not a double, anyway. The 006. Very cool knife from ZT. $320 for this. 6-inch blade, 3V steel. Excellent particle metallurgy steel for hard use fixed blades, in my opinion. It is full tang. It comes with green G10 scales, a crossguard, and a butt plate. Very solid knife. The Anonymous is a little bit less expensive by about 41 bucks, $279 right now. It's a little bit smaller too. 5-inch blade, crew wear steel. Still a very good choice, still a very tough steel. It also comes with bolt-on G10 handles of the pretty much same color. No crossguard and no butt cap, but we do have a finger guard here. Let's get to the big difference here. First off, apart from size, of course, you've got a little bit more to work with the 006, obviously. But let's talk about the thicknesses of the two blades right here. For a hard-use survival knife, the Anonymous might be thinner than most people tend to think of as appropriate. Now, the crew wear steel, the use of crew wear steel there will mitigate that somewhat because it is nice and tough, but you're not getting the same kind of thicker, more robust spine that you get on the 006. To what degree that matters is entirely up to what you're looking to use the knife for. If you're wanting something that you're gonna bash on, maybe baton wood with, be more indiscriminate in its use, I'd say the thicker 3V of the 006 might stand up better. If you're looking for something that is gonna slice more efficiently, do some of the finer camp tasks more easily or more efficiently, maybe do some hunting and skinning with, for me, the Anonymous takes it here. It's smaller, more controllable, thinner, slicier all around, and still a very tough steel. Now, I know I mentioned kind of survival-y uses, but let's move on down the blade towards the handle a little further, where we see that other difference, that being the crossguard. The symmetrical crossguard we see on the 006, I would actually argue takes it a little bit away from the survival knife or outdoor style survival knife a bit, and leans it a little more into the combat role. That's because the guard coming off the back side can interfere with some grips you might want to do when choking up. It's not the biggest guard in the world, and it can certainly be worked around, but it is a consideration. That's not something you're going to have to think about to the same degree with the Anonymous, because you can choke up very easily. You can get your fingertip along the spine there. That's harder to do with the 006. You've got that piece of metal getting in the way of some of those types of grips. Speaking of grips like that, there's a point on the Anonymous right here with these finger scallops, thumb scallops typically called, that in that choked up grip with the fingertip on the spine rests really naturally there. So it's The Anonymous to me is definitely more catered towards precision knife work rather than, you know, more indiscriminate knife work than the 0006. Ergonomics, same thing. We've kind of got a bit of, you know, slab-sided nature to the 0006. It's not uncomfortable, but it's definitely not going to equal the comfort of the Anonymous's contoured G10 scales. Definitely more attention paid to the way your hand is actually going to interface with the handle on this knife. One thing you lose on the Anonymous, however, is that butt plate on the back of the 0006, which can be used for some hammering types of tasks. You know, certain, depending, again, on needs, may or may not come into question. In a true survival scenario, if we're talking about these as survival knives, there are ways to get around that using the other parts of the blade carefully. I'm not going to go into those right now, but that is, you know, another difference you're going to see between the two. Other features, we do have a sharpened choil here, or a crisp-edged choil, I should say, for the Anonymous here, designed to fit most standard-sized ferrocerium rods, fire steels, ferro rods, that sort of thing. So you can throw sparks off of that. There's no part on the 0006 that out of the box is set up to scrape a fire steel very well. You can get in there and sharpen this edge up or crisp this edge up if you wanted to, maybe with a Dremel or something like that, and you could get that back. But it would be a mod you'd have to do out of the box. Sheaths, let's talk about those. They are quite similar, actually. Again, here is the Anonymous's sheath. It is a pancake-style Kydex holster. Is this actually bolt-on? It's bolt-on. Same style of thing, anyway. With a fire steel loop, fire steel not included, and a little drop leg or a drop attachment to carry it a little lower. But you could, if you wanted to, use a large tech lock or a standard size tech lock if you want a different attachment method. Now the ZT, its sheath is in fact Kydex, not bolt-on. Similar stuff going on. You've got the drop attachment here. The retention is nice and good. It will also facilitate the use of a large tech lock, but because of these slots in between the rivets, it'll work with a lot of other off-the-shelf aftermarket things as well, like a small tech lock or other stuff like that. So those are kind of some nitty-gritties, some down and dirty comparisons between the two. But ultimately, the reason I said in the beginning that these aren't something that, to me, I would have ever thought of kind of crossing swords with the two of these, because they are very, very different knives despite how they show up on paper, on screen, so to speak, on our website. And that's honestly what I think my favorite part of being able to do these videos is I'm able to kind of share that real life impression. These aren't reviews. I mean, these are impressions of these knives. I've never actually used either of these knives in any facility, any faculty at all, just kind of holding them here. But I know it works. And that's not something, the characteristics of these knives don't always come across on paper. So I hope that helps. Anything to add, Mr. Thomas behind the camera?
No.
Okay, that's good. Next question here comes from Papik1965. Question for you guys. Firstly, as always, thanks for your reviews. Presentations, in any case. Absolute tops. My question relates to the difference, price-wise especially, this is a versus episode as we're finding out, between the Liong Mah Field Duty 3.5 with burlap micarta and the Boker Plus Jesper Vakne's little friend Flipper with brown micarta. This is a KnifeCenter exclusive right here. I've looked at the specs between the two. Obviously the Field Duty is bigger. Is it the maker's name or quality difference that makes a jump from one knife being 150 and the other 425? Would be really great to hear your opinion. Sure thing. These two knives, each very good. Let's get down, or let me kind of run through a couple of quick specs. Both of these knives come with S90V blade steel, which is part of why I think the question was asked. Let me measure the thickness of the blades here real quick. We're 0.15 on the Liong Mah and 0.155 on the Boker. So thickness-wise, they're actually pretty in line. The main difference between these two is there's a little bit more material on the Field Duty, but ultimately the fit and finish is next level compared to what you get with this Boker. This Boker is very good. And in fact, I would go so far as to argue that it is an incredible value for what you're getting here. I mean, burlap micarta S90V blade steel, fairly thick piece of it, which adds expense the thicker you go on anything. 150 bucks, 149.95, which is $23 cheaper than the S35VN version. That's the standard catalog version. So that's really cool. But around the edges, you're just getting more with the Liong Mah. These are made by Riot, which is top tier mass production stuff out there. Like insanely good for the money you're paying. You've got more contouring with this Liong Mah. You've got more details done around the edges of all the materials. Like check out the chamfered edges on the steel. Profiles are similar, but yeah, you've got a little bit more. Ultimately, it's a more premium product, which just, I think, goes to show how good a bargain this Boker right here is. What else? Let's see, you do have titanium on the Liong Mah. That adds a little expense. And ultimately, the pieces of burlap, wherever they've sourced their burlap for the Liong Mah, is just better. I mean, look at how good that looks on that Liong Mah. The Boker's not bad, but the Liong Mah is definitely better. I mean, superb. It also has my favorite kind of deep carry pocket clip, tail mounted, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's worth the expense right there.
For some, it might be. I like other clips too. That's fine. But there you go. About $425 was it for the Liong Mah versus 150. Great value right there. Let's square off another two knives against each other. Carlos A. Silva 23 asks, what's the difference between a Sodbuster and a Puukko? They both have straight spines, straightish near the edge, near the handle, and a belly near the tip. Is it a difference of where they come from? Ultimately, when we talk about those two things, yes, there are similarities in blade shape. Here, I'll hold up a Sodbuster Junior by Case, and a Kellum Puukko right here. But they're not quite the same in this case, and part of it is actually to do with the heritage. You hit on that a little bit. Now, when we talk about a Sodbuster blade, we're talking about it because it's associated with the Sodbuster pattern, which has long been just a down and dirty working man's slip joint pocket knife. This Case version right here is still made in the USA. It's like $33. Very affordable, very good value for what you're getting. Interestingly, most Sodbusters aren't straight spines. They actually have a little bit of a clip, although I have even seen a drop point version, but they're usually clip point blades. And to me, yeah, you've got a straight edge near the heel and often a very abrupt belly near the end. That's kind of a characteristic Sodbuster style shape to me. It gets more complicated. The plot thickens, or the thought plickens, as my dad used to say, when we talk about Puukko. Puukko is a Finnish word, and it translates just to knife. So even though oftentimes when we think of what a Puukko blade shape is, it's not as strict as all that when you actually get to the host or the mother country that brought the style. Puukko only nominally describes a blade shape, kind of like buoy. Buoys can be clip points, most often are, in fact. I've seen drop point buoys as well. Like it's all a thing. But anyway, this is what we usually think of as a typical Puukko blade shape. And I'm putting that in a very, very heavy set of air quotes right there. In this case, yeah, you're getting a straight spine and kind of a more average belly here. To me, a Sodbuster usually has a much more abrupt belly there near the tip. But I want to just take a minute and appreciate these Kellum knives. These are actually really good value too for what you're getting here. 75 bucks, 3-inch carbon steel blade, curly birch handles, insanely comfortable. Fit and finish on them is superb. I mean, just an excellent, excellent knife. Comes with a leather sheath too. So to me, that's more a Puukko. But it does, the point you brought up, or the question you brought up to me really does kind of allow me to bring to the forefront that thing of history, that thing of heritage. A lot of things get their names because of where they came from. And knives have been with humanity for all of our history. So the fact that our history kind of still plays such an important role in defining different types of knives and different styles, to me, that's just cool. I enjoy that sort of thing. Thomas, anything to add?
Knife-shaped knife.
That wasn't worth adding. Thank you, though. Knife-shaped knife. Anyway, now we come to our lightning round for today. Thomas, anything to ask?
Not fast.
That's all good. Thomas Winslow says, Yo, DCA, what do you think is the most versatile brand? Meaning a company that sells high-end knives as well as more budget-friendly. Different styles like fixed blades, button lock, liner lock, big, small, plain or flamboyant, etc., traditional or modern. Basically, is there a single knife company out there that could cater to every knife enthusiast, no matter what their individual interests are? Yes, Boker is where you want to go. They make stuff in Germany. Obviously, they're a Solingen-based company in Solingen, Germany, and they make everything from traditionals. Check out this really awesome camp knife right here. They make modern flippers, like the little friend we just looked at. They collaborate with name brand designers like Jesper Vaknes. They make more budget stuff. They make more premium stuff. They make kind of off-the-wall stuff like this Kubisek credit card knife right here. What's the name of that, actually? Let me get it right. It's the credit card knife. Hey, I was right. Look at that. They make fixed blades. They make stuff in Germany. They make stuff in America. They make stuff in China. They make stuff in Taiwan, I'm pretty sure, too. They make stuff in Buenos Aires, right? Buenos Aires? The Arbelito knives. I think it's Buenos Aires. South America, in any case. Argentina. Says so on the blade. Preparation will get you far, people.
I'm pretty sure Boker is just German for knife.
It's pronounced Boker, like Puukko, though. Yeah. It's like that's funny. Hey, Thomas added something good this time. Hey, all right, I enjoy it. Yeah, they do have some button lock designs. They've got new crossbar lock stuff coming out. We saw their Kihon at Blade Show earlier this year. That's being revamped with a crossbar lock. They work with factories all around the world to produce their stuff, and they do every price range you could think of and every different style you can think of, way more than any other company out there. They're awesome. Next question comes from Iron Man. So what kind of blade is a Swiss Army knife? A spear or a drop point? Well, setting aside for the moment that all spear points are drop points, but not vice versa, you could technically answer this both ways. If any of the models, most of the models anyway, that you look at that have descended from the old Wenger brand, which was a separate company before Victorinox bought them, and then eventually later merged the two under just the Victorinox name. Any of those Wenger models that have been carried over and survived that transition, such as the S18, one of my favorite Swiss Army knives of all time, this would have a spear point blade, which is simply a drop point that is at least mostly symmetrical on the top and bottom side with the tip along the center line. Some would argue it must be absolutely symmetrical, but there's a little wiggle room there. If it's a little bit off one way or the other, we kind of still call it a spear point. Most of the original Victorinox models that have always been Victorinox models, such as this Pioneer X right here, the tip is a little bit below the center line. So I would call this not a spear point, but it is a drop point. It's not so low that it starts to get into that sort of modified sheep's foot territory, though. It's almost a spear point. Does this make any difference? Nah. They're both pretty very similar. So, but we like to split hairs here, whether we're talking about details about things or actually sharpening our knives so that they can split hairs. Both of them worthy pursuits.
One more than the other, usually.
And now we come to our final question of the day, which is, of course, our most serious question of the day. And this comes from Rams Cold Lampin. Most serious question. How many Lowes would Rob Lowe rob if Rob Lowe could rob Lowe's? And what knife would he have? I've enjoyed just walking around asking people this question. It's very amusing. But to the heartwood of your question here. To perform this task, Mr. Lowe would need the blade of a burglar, yes? So why not the blade from the most famousest of all burglars, that being Mr. Bilbo Baggins, the Hobbit, and his short sword Sting. This would be an excellent device to use, allegedly, for this sort of activity. However, how many Lowes could he rob? Or I guess you said would Rob Lowe rob. I'm going to pretend you said how many could he rob. Herein lies the problem. Pretty much everybody knows what Rob Lowe looks like, so he wouldn't be able to get away with it. So he couldn't actually do it. He'd be too recognizable.
He's gonna have to go to Home Depot then.
Yeah, they don't know what Rob Lowe looks like at Home Depot. That's now canon. You can write it down. Write it down on Wikipedia. Someone's going to do that now.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, that's all we have for today, folks. Thanks for sticking around. If you have any questions you would like a shot at being answered in a future episode, drop them in the comments as per usual. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, as per usual, there are links in the description that will take you to KnifeCenter.com. And don't forget, of course, about our Knife Rewards program, because when you're buying one of these knives today, you can earn up to 5% back in rewards on a future one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, and that's Thomas behind the camera. We're signing off. See you next time.